The Calopeening Earth. 6 months after first contact, the sky had changed. Once a canvas of blue and cloud, it now bore the scars of sovereignty lost. Silver streaks of alien transports cutting through the atmosphere like surgical incisions. Humanity had reached for the stars and found them already claimed. Sarah Cross stood in the ruins of her kitchen, hands trembling as she clutched the fabric of her youngest son's shirt. The house was too quiet, the kind of silence that follows violence. They'd come at dawn, 4 Corthan enforcers, their chitinous armor reflecting the sunrise like oil on water. No warning, no paperwork. Just a list of names and neural collars that clicked shut around small necks before she could even scream. Conscription, they called it. Mandatory labor allocation for developing species. Kidnapping, she called it. Slavery. Her 3 boys, Marcus, 14, Daniel, 11, and little Tommy, 8, were gone. Loaded onto a transport bound for a world she'd never heard of, to do work that would break them or reshape them into something she wouldn't recognize. The local human authorities had offered sympathy and paperwork. The Galactic Embassy had offered procedure and patience. Sarah offered them both the door. There was only one person left to call. Somewhere in the outer colonies, Nathan Cross hadn't worn his uniform in 6 years. He'd buried it in the back of a storage locker on a nowhere mining station, along with his medals, his sidearm, and most of his faith in orders from above. The Green Beret had seen 3 wars, 2 on Earth, 1 in the Belt, before first contact made every human conflict feel like children squabbling over toys. When the Galactic Council arrived with their treaties and hierarchies, Nathan had read the fine print and recognized an occupation when he saw one, so he'd walked away. Took a freighter mechanic job on Outpost Meridian, kept his head down, and tried to forget that he'd once been the kind of man who kicked down doors to save lives. The message from Sarah came through on a junked comm terminal he'd salvaged from a derelict hauler. Audio only, crackling with distance and desperation. Nathan, I know we haven't spoken since Mom's funeral. I know you told me to never contact you unless it was life or death. A long pause, the sound of breath catching. It's death, Nathan. They took my boys. The Corthans took Marcus, Danny, and Tommy. Conscription raid. They're gone, and no one will help me. No one will even tell me where they are. Another pause. Longer. I need my brother, please. They're just kids. Nathan played the message 3 times before his hands stopped shaking. Then, he opened the storage locker. Titan Station. Saturn Orbital Major Elias Reaper Kane was teaching a class on explosive ordnance disposal when the message hit his personal channel. He glanced at the sender ID, frowned, and excused himself from a room full of confused marine engineering candidates. The message was text only. Encrypted with a cipher he and Nathan had developed 15 years ago during a Black Ops tour neither of them were supposed to talk about. From Cross, Enri volunteer mission, high-risk message they took Sarah's kids. Corthan conscription sweep, no legal recourse, no diplomatic channels. Going in dark, could use a demo man, no obligation. Understand if you can't, Elias read it twice. Then he pulled up his duty roster, calculated his available leave time, and started composing his resignation letter. He made it 3 sentences before deleting it and writing a simpler one, to commanding officer. Marine Engineering Division Emergency Personal Leave, 60 days message, family emergency. Effective immediately. Will return when resolved. He didn't mention that Nathan wasn't technically family. Some bonds ran deeper than blood. Reunion, neutral trading hub. The Drift, the Yo. Drift was the kind of place where questions were expensive and answers were dangerous. A hollowed-out asteroid on the edge of Council space. It served as a way station for smugglers, refugees, and anyone else trying to move through the galaxy without leaving a trail. Nathan arrived first, buying passage on a ghost freighter under a fake ID. He'd traded his mechanic's coveralls for tactical gear, black, unmarked, functional. The rifle across his back was human-made, older generation, but reliable. The kind that didn't need fancy alien tech to put a hole through armor. Elias arrived 6 hours later on a different ship, carrying a duffel bag that clinked suspiciously when he set it down. They met in a back corner bar that smelled like recycled air and regret. You look like shit, Elias said, sliding into the booth. You look old, Nathan replied. We're the same age. Asshole. Yeah, but you look worse. They grinned at each other. Then the grins faded as the weight of what came next settled between them. You sure about this? Elias asked quietly. We go after Corthan conscripts, we're not just breaking laws. We're declaring war on a species that considers humans barely sentient. Nathan pulled up a data pad and slid it across the table. On it was everything he'd been able to dig up over the past week. Smuggler reports, intercepted transmissions, transport manifests that shouldn't exist. They're running them through a facility on Karak 4, military training station. They're not using them for labor, Elias. They're turning them into soldiers. Child soldiers. Yeah. Elias was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his duffel and pulled out a compact explosive charge, setting it gently on the table like a promise. Then we burn that facility to bedrock. Nathan nodded. We're gonna need a ship. A good one. Something fast and mean. I know a guy, Elias said. He owes me for a thing in Vega Prime, but he's not gonna be happy about where we're headed. Nobody's happy about where we're headed, Nathan said. That's kind of the point. Planning the infiltration over the next 3 days. They assembled their operation from scraps and favors. The ship, a retrofitted gunship called the Revenant, piloted by a grizzled human freighter captain named Ortiz, who'd lost family in Corthan raids and had his own reasons to hate the Dominion. Intel, purchased from a Vexian information broker who dealt in secrets the Council didn't want shared. The data confirmed it. Karak 4 wasn't just a training station. It was a processing center. Human children broken down and rebuilt. Memories suppressed, loyalty rewired. Gear stolen, scrounged, and smuggled. Elias had enough demolition equipment to level a city block. Nathan had enough ammunition to fight through one. They studied the station schematics until they could navigate them blind. Identified guard rotations, security protocols, vulnerabilities. The Corthans were efficient but arrogant. They didn't expect resistance from humans, especially not from two who should have been too old, too tired, too broken by the galaxy's new order to fight back. They were about to learn differently. On the 4th night, as the Revenant burned silently toward Corthan space, Nathan sat alone in the cargo hold and pulled out a photo he'd kept folded in his wallet. Sarah's family at Christmas 5 years ago. 3 smiling boys in matching sweaters. He didn't know if they'd still be smiling when he found them, but he was damn sure going to try. Behind him, Elias was humming something, an old cadence from boot camp, the kind you sing when you're marching toward hell and don't care who knows it. Nathan joined in, and the Revenant crossed into enemy territory like a prayer wrapped in steel. The infiltration Karak 4. Approached the planet hung in the void like a bruise, mottled purple and gray, its atmosphere thick with industrial haze. Karakir wasn't a world anyone colonized by choice. It was a military installation that happened to have gravity. The Revenant drifted on minimal power, using the debris field of a long-dead moon as cover. On the bridge, Ortiz kept his hands steady on manual controls, eyes flicking between sensor readouts and the viewport. Patrol patterns holding, he whispered, though there was no one to hear them in the vacuum. Got a 16-minute window before the next sweep. After that, you're on your own. Nathan checked his rifle for the 3rd time. Beside him, Elias was doing something intricate with det cord and a timer, his fingers moving with the precision of a surgeon. Drop us on the southern hemisphere, Nathan said. Industrial sector. We'll go in through the waste reclamation entrance. You mean the garbage chute, Ortiz corrected. Yeah, that. You two are absolutely insane. Noted, Elias said without looking up. You'll wait for our signal? 48 hours, Ortiz confirmed. After that, I assume you're dead and I get drunk in your memory. Appreciated. Entry the drop pod screamed through Karak 4's atmosphere like a bullet, ablative shielding burning away in sheets of plasma. Inside, Nathan and Elias were strapped into crash harnesses, gear mag locked to every available surface. The impact was exactly as bad as they'd expected. The pod buried itself 6 meters deep in a waste processing trench, surrounded by the detritus of a military installation, spent ammunition casings, broken equipment, biological waste from a dozen species. The smell was indescribable. Home sweet home, Elias muttered, popping the hatch. They emerged into a nightmare of industrial machinery, massive crushers and incinerators processing the station's refuse in a hellish assembly line. The air was toxic enough that they had to seal their helmets, relying on internal oxygen supplies. Nathan pulled up a holomap on his wrist display, the stolen schematics overlaying his vision. Processing center is 2 kilometers north. Through the foundry level, past the barracks, into the detention sector. So right through the middle of everything. Yeah. I love a good shortcut. 48 hours, Ortiz confirmed. After that, I assume you're dead and I get drunk in your memory. Appreciated. Entry the drop pod screamed through Carrick Fee's atmosphere like a bullet. Ablative shielding burning away in sheets of plasma. Inside, Nathan and Elias were strapped into crash harnesses. Gear mag-locked to every available surface. The impact was exactly as bad as they'd expected. The pod buried itself 6 meters deep in a waste processing trench, surrounded by the detritus of a military installation, spent ammunition casings, broken equipment, biological waste from a dozen species. The smell was indescribable. Home sweet home, Elias muttered, popping the hatch. They emerged into a nightmare of industrial machinery, massive crushers and incinerators processing the station's refuse in a hellish assembly line. The air was toxic enough that they had to seal their helmets, relying on internal oxygen supplies. Nathan pulled up a holomap on his wrist display, the stolen schematics overlaying his vision. Processing center is 2 kilometers north. Through the foundry level, past the barracks, into the detention sector, so right through the middle of everything. Yeah. I love a good shortcut. They moved like ghosts through the machinery, using the constant thunder of crushers and furnaces to mask their footsteps. Twice they had to freeze as Corthan maintenance crews passed. Tall insectoid beings with too many joints and eyes that saw in spectrums humans couldn't. The Corthans never looked down, never expected threats from below. That was their first mistake. The foundry. The foundry was a cathedral of fire and metal. Massive forges shaped starship components while Corthan overseers watched from elevated platforms, their neural whips crackling with electricity for any worker who slowed their pace. And there, among the workers, humans, adults mostly, bent and broken by months or years of labor. Their eyes were hollow, movements mechanical. Neural collars glowed at their necks, suppressing resistance, enforcing compliance. Nathan felt something cold settle in his chest. Easy, Elias whispered, reading his body language. We can't save everyone. Not yet. I know. But he committed every face to memory anyway. They skirted the edge of the foundry using cargo containers and support columns for cover. Nathan's training screamed at him to move faster. But Elias kept them disciplined, slow and methodical, checking corners, watching sight lines. They were halfway across when an alarm split the air. Not for them, a different emergency. One of the forges had ruptured, spilling molten metal across the floor. Workers scattered. Overseers descended, whips cracking. In the chaos, a young human woman broke formation and ran. She made it 10 meters before a Corthan overseer caught her, whip lashing out to wrap around her ankle. She fell hard, screaming. Nathan's hand went to his rifle. Elias grabbed his wrist. Don't. She's a distraction we can't afford. We blow our cover now, those kids die. The logic was sound. The logic was correct. Nathan hated every word of it. The woman was dragged back into formation. The alarm ceased. Order restored. They kept moving. The barracks, the military sector, was cleaner, colder, more organized. Rows of barracks housing Corthan soldiers, training facilities, armories. They moved through ventilation shafts and maintenance tunnels, always one level below notice. Through grating in the floor, Nathan glimpsed a training yard, and there, children, human children in undersized Corthan military uniforms, running through combat drills under the supervision of armored instructors. Their movements were precise but wrong, like puppets mimicking soldiers. Neural collars pulsed in rhythm with their steps. Nathan scanned faces frantically through his scope. There, Marcus, Sarah's oldest, taller than Nathan remembered, leaner. His face was blank, expression erased. Beside him, smaller, Daniel. Same empty eyes, same mechanical precision. I've got visual on 2 of them, Nathan breathed into his comm. Marcus and Daniel. No sign of the youngest yet. He'll be in the processing center, Elias said. Younger ones take longer to break. They keep them separated until they're ready. How do you know that? Elias's voice went flat. Because that's what I'd do. They watched the drill for another 30 seconds, long enough for Nathan to memorize guard positions, patrol routes, camera angles. Long enough to see Marcus stumble during a formation turn and receive an electric shock from his collar that dropped him to his knees. Long enough to feel rage replace blood in his veins. "I'm getting them out tonight," Nathan said. "That's not the plan. We extract intel first, find all the kids, then..." "Tonight, Elias." The Marine was quiet for a long moment. "Then, all right, your call, but we do it smart." "Smart how?" A grin entered Elias's voice. "We make them think the station's under attack. Something big enough that they evacuate the training yard to defensive positions. In the chaos, we grab your nephews and disappear." "And how do we fake an attack?" Elias patted his duffel bag. "Brother, that's what I've been carrying this shit for. The diversion, it took them 4 hours to rig the charges." Elias placed them with artist's precision, targeting power junctions, fuel depots, communication arrays. Not enough to destroy the station, but enough to make it scream. Nathan positioned himself overlooking the training yard, rifle braced, watching his nephews march through another soulless drill. "Ready when you are." Elias's voice crackled through the comm. Nathan took a breath. "Do it." The station exploded. Not literally, Elias was too good for that. But the result was the same. Lights died across entire sectors. Alarms shrieked. Fire suppression systems dumped foam and chemicals. Somewhere deep in the station's core, something important burst and began venting atmosphere. In the training yard, Corthan instructors received emergency orders and moved immediately to defensive positions, herding the children toward bunkers. Nathan moved. He dropped from the ventilation shaft into the yard, rifle up, moving with the fluid speed of a younger man pushed beyond limits by desperation. 2 instructors turned toward him. He put rounds through their thorax sections before they could raise weapons. Children scattered, confused, collars pulsing with conflicting commands. "Marcus!" Nathan shouted. "Daniel!" Marcus turned, and for just a second, one impossible second, there was recognition in his eyes. Something human flickering beneath the conditioning. Then it vanished, replaced by protocol. Marcus raised his sidearm. Nathan's heart stopped. "Marcus, it's your Uncle Nathan. Your mom sent me. I'm here to take you home." The boy's hand trembled. The pistol wavered. Behind him, Daniel collapsed, Elias catching him as he fell. The Marine had disabled the boy's collar with a neural jammer. Now he moved to Marcus, but the older boy backpedaled, weapon still raised. "Target, designation, human insurgent," Marcus recited, voice flat. "Yeah," Nathan said softly, lowering his rifle. "That's me. I'm the bad guy here. The one who's gonna steal you from the people who took you, who's gonna break every rule they wrote, who's gonna burn this whole damn place down if that's what it takes." He stepped forward. Marcus's finger tightened on the trigger. "But I'm also your uncle, and I promised your mom I'd bring you home." The pistol shook. Marcus's face contorted. Pain, confusion, something struggling to surface through layers of programming. "I know," Nathan said. "But you will. I promise you'll remember. Just come with me, please." Behind them, more alarms. Shouts in Corthan. The sound of reinforcements approaching. Marcus's hand dropped. Nathan moved forward. Elias's jammer disabling the collar in a burst of static. The boy's legs gave out and Nathan caught him, feeling how light he'd become, how much they'd taken from him. "Got him," Nathan breathed. "Now where's processing center?" Elias barked. "Tommy's still in there and it's in full lockdown. We've got maybe 5 minutes before this place is crawling with soldiers." Nathan looked at his unconscious nephews, then at the fortress ahead. "Get them to the extraction point. I'll get Tommy." "The hell you will. Get them out, Major, that's an order." Elias met his eyes, saw something there that ended the argument. 5 minutes, Nathan. Then I'm coming back for all of you. See you in 5. Nathan ran toward the processing center, leaving his friend to carry 2 boys toward freedom while he dove deeper into hell for the 3rd. The Reckoning, the processing center. The lockdown doors were 30 centimeters of reinforced alloy designed to contain riots, fires, and atmospheric breaches. Nathan had nothing that could cut through them, so he didn't try. Instead, he placed one of Elias's remaining charges on the wall adjacent to the door, targeting the structural seam where 2 prefab sections joined. Not elegant, but effective. The explosion was surgical. The wall peeled open like a tin can, alarms shrieking louder if that was even possible. Nathan pushed through smoke and twisted metal into a corridor painted in sterile white and harsh, fluorescent light, and immediately understood why they called it processing. The hallway was lined with cells, not prison cells, but medical ones. Through reinforced windows he saw children strapped to tilted beds, neural interfaces attached to their skulls, screens displaying Corthan script and imagery cycling too fast for human eyes to follow. Indoctrination in real time, memories being overwritten, identities dissolved and reconstructed. He saw a girl, maybe 6 years old, thrashing against restraints while something was done to her mind. Saw a teenage boy sitting motionless, tears streaming down his face as his lips moved in silent recitation of something he was being taught to believe. Nathan's hand tightened on his rifle until his knuckles went white. Later. Rage. Later. Find Tommy now. He moved through the corridor, checking each cell. The facility was in chaos. Staff evacuating, automated systems confused by the alarms, security protocols fighting with emergency procedures. No one noticed one human soldier moving the wrong direction through the madness. Cell after cell. Wrong face. Wrong age. Wrong, their third door from the end. Through the window, a small figure strapped to a bed. Dark hair, too thin frame. 8 years old Tommy. Nathan slammed his fist against the access panel, locked. He raised his rifle to shoot it. I wouldn't, a voice said behind him in perfect English. Nathan spun, weapon coming up. The Corthan standing there was different from the others. Smaller, sleeker, with markings on its carapace that suggested rank. It held no weapon, just a data pad in its multi-jointed hands. Captain Cross, it said, inclining its head. Yes, we know who you are. Former special operations, decorated, then nothing. You disappeared, and now you appear here destroying property, killing staff, stealing processed assets. Those assets are children, Nathan said, voice cold. They are resources, the Corthan corrected, allocated by treaty to Dominion use. Their neuroplasticity makes them ideal for military applications. Your species agreed to this. Our governments agreed. We didn't. A distinction without meaning. But I am curious, you risk everything for 3 juveniles. There are hundreds here, thousands across the sector. Will you save them all? Nathan's finger moved to the trigger. I'll start with 1. Then you condemn the rest. We will increase security, harden protocols. Your heroic rescue will ensure no others follow. The logic was designed to paralyze, to turn rescue into complicity. Nathan shot the Corthan twice in the thorax. Don't care. He blasted the lock, tore the door open, and reached Tommy's bedside in 3 strides. The neural interface was still active, pulsing with data. Nathan grabbed it to rip it free. No! A technician, human wearing a collar, grabbed his arm. You'll damage his cortex. The disconnection has to be gradual or... Nathan stared at the terrified human woman. At her collar. At her eyes that still held something human beneath the control. How long? 2 minutes. Maybe 3. I can do it, but you need to... Shouting in the corridor. Heavy footsteps. The distinctive whine of Corthan plasma weapons charging. Do it, Nathan said, moving to the door. Fast as you can. He stepped into the hallway as Corthan security rounded the corner. 6 of them in full combat armor, weapons raised. Nathan opened fire. Last stand. The firefight was brief and brutal. Nathan used the doorframe as cover. His human-made rifle punching through Corthan armor with reliable kinetic fury. 2 went down in the first exchange. A third took a round through the skull. But they were trained soldiers and they adapted fast. Plasma bolts scorched the walls around him. 1 grazed his shoulder, the heat blistering through his armor. Another hit his rifle, melting the barrel assembly. The weapon died in his hands. He dropped it, drew his sidearm and kept firing. 4 down. 5. The 6th got close enough to swing an electrified baton at his head. Nathan ducked, drove his knife into the joint of its leg armor and twisted until something important ruptured. The Corthan fell, screeching, behind him. Done! He's free. Nathan turned. The technician had removed the interface, Tommy limp in her arms. The boy was breathing but unconscious, his small face slack. Give him to me, Nathan ordered. The technician hesitated, looking at her collar, at freedom so close she could touch it. Please, she whispered. Take me with you. I can't, I don't want to. I will, Nathan promised, taking Tommy. But right now I need you to run. Get to the hangar bay. Find a human marine named Kane. Tell him Nathan sent you. He'll get you out. You're not coming. I'm right behind you. The lie tasted like ash. She ran. Smart woman. Didn't look back. Nathan cradled Tommy against his chest with one arm, sidearm in the other hand, and started moving toward the exit Elias had blown open. He made it 15 meters before the next security team arrived. The message: they didn't shoot him. That was the first sign something had changed. 10 Korthan soldiers, weapons trained, forming a perimeter but not firing. Behind them, a figure Nathan recognized from intelligence briefings, Commander Zekthar, the station's commanding officer. Captain Cross, Zekthar said, voice resonating in the translator unit at its throat. You have caused significant disruption. 11 casualties, 17 million credits in damages. And for what? 3 juvenile units? Nathan said nothing, just held Tommy tighter. You cannot win this engagement. Surrender the asset. We will make your death quick. No, then you doom yourself and the unit both. Our reinforcements arrive in 43 seconds. You have no escape. Nathan looked down at Tommy, at the boy who'd been taken from his bed, from his mother, from everything he knew, who'd been strapped to a table and had his mind violated, who still had a chance to remember birthday parties and Christmas mornings and a mom who loved him enough to call a brother she hadn't spoken to in years. Yeah, Nathan said quietly, but he does. He triggered the beacon in his armor, the one Elias had given him for emergencies. 3 short pulses. The signal that meant get out now no matter what. Then he opened fire. The extraction, the Revenant, hit the station's hangar bay like a meteor, Ortiz bringing the ship in so hot the landing struts buckled on impact. Elias was already at the cargo ramp. Marcus and Daniel secured in the hold, the human technician Nathan had sent stumbling aboard in a panic. Where's Nathan? Elias demanded. Processing center. He said he was right behind me, but the beacon signal hit Elias's comm. 3 pulses. His blood went cold. Ortiz, get airborne the second I'm back. Don't wait. Reaper, if you go back in there. Elias was already running. He moved through the station like a force of nature. Every soldier who got in his way went down hard. Punches. Knife work. Stolen weapons fired until empty, then discarded. He followed the sound of combat, the beacon signal getting stronger. He found Nathan in a corridor painted with Korthan blood and human defiance. His friend was down on one knee. Tommy clutched against his chest with one arm, the other hanging useless and burned. Korthan soldiers were closing in from both ends of the corridor, plasma weapons charging for a final volley. Elias didn't slow down. He hit the Korthan formation like a battering ram. The demolition charges he'd been saving for emergencies detonating in a chain that turned the corridor into a pressure wave of fire and shrapnel. Korthan soldiers scattered, armor cracked, formation broken. Move your ass, Captain. Elias roared, grabbing Nathan by the back of his armor and hauling him upright. They ran. Behind them, Commander Zekthar screamed orders. Ahead, more soldiers poured in. Elias threw charges blindly, each explosion buying seconds. Nathan fired his sidearm one-handed until the slide locked back empty. The hangar bay appeared through smoke and chaos. The Revenant was hovering 2 meters off the deck, cargo ramp down, Ortiz's voice screaming through comms to move, move, move. They dove through the ramp as plasma bolts tore through the air where they'd been standing. The ship lurched upward, armor sparking as point defense turrets tracked it. Ortiz pushed the engines past redline, the artificial gravity failing as they accelerated past safety margins. Behind them, Karakov shrank from a nightmare to a distant star. Inside the cargo hold, Nathan finally let himself collapse, Tommy still clutched against him. The boy stirred, eyes fluttering open. Uncle, Nathan? Tommy whispered, voice small and confused and beautifully, impossibly human. Nathan felt something break in his chest. Yeah, buddy. It's me. Where's Mom? We're going to her. Right now. I promise. Tommy's eyes closed again, but this time in sleep, not unconsciousness. Natural sleep. The kind children have when they feel safe. Across the hold, Marcus and Daniel were waking up too, the neural suppression fading. They looked lost, confused, traumatized, but alive. Salvageable, homebound. Elias slumped against a bulkhead, bleeding from a dozen places, grinning like a maniac. We did it, he said. You crazy son of a bitch, we actually did it. Nathan nodded, then looked at the human technician huddled in the corner. At the 3 boys who represented hundreds more, At Elias, who'd risked everything on a promise and a prayer. "We saved 3, Nathan said quietly. "There are thousands more." "Then we go back," Elias said simply. "We keep going back until there's no one left to save." "That's not a mission. That's a war." "Yeah," Elias agreed. "It is." Epilogue. 6 months later, the recording spread through human colonies like wildfire. Footage from Nathan's helmet cam, the cells, the children, the processing. The truth the council had hidden behind treaties and diplomatic language. Humanity erupted. What started as protests became uprisings. What started as uprisings became revolution. Human colonies refused conscription quotas. Human soldiers deserted Corthan service. Human worlds closed their borders and armed their militias. And at the center of it all, 2 soldiers who just wanted to save 3 kids became something else entirely. Nathan Cross and Elias Kane became symbols. Became legends. Became the face of human defiance against a galaxy that had treated them as resources to be exploited. They didn't want it. They just wanted to keep rescuing children. But history doesn't care what you want. Sarah's sons recovered slowly. Marcus remembered first, then Daniel, finally Tommy. The scars would last forever, but so would the knowledge that someone had come for them, that they hadn't been forgotten. On a transport heading toward another Corthan facility, Nathan checked his rifle for the 100th time. Beside him, Elias was humming that old cadence again. Behind them, 50 human volunteers, soldiers, engineers, parents, all armed, all ready. "You ever think about stopping?" Elias asked. Nathan thought about it. About peace. About rest. About a life without nightmares and raid sirens and children's faces he couldn't save. "No," he said simply. "Good," Elias replied. "Me neither." The transport dropped out of FTL, another station, another mission. Another chance to remind the galaxy of one simple truth. Humanity bows to no one. And anyone who touches our children learns that mercy is a gift we give to friends, not to kidnappers.